for Nia today, I always do this. I get my clients to send me a photo of their full face, no makeup, so that I can start planning out their set and looking at their lashes, their eye shape, all the things. And then I also have them send me an inspiration photo so I can begin to build a unique set for that unique client and their physical attributes. I'm really excited that this actually happened today. So what happened is Nia's photo, it's obviously a true representation of her, but the way that she's looking at the camera made it look like there wasn't a huge lift and tilt to the eye. It looked kind of like her eyes were more narrow in shape, but in real life, I can see that there is quite a lift in the middle of the eye, and then it does descend down more than I was expecting. So that means that I am going to have to change my map a little bit. So what I'm gonna do for today's look is I'm gonna use wet lashes. I'm gonna write that on my client's consultation note card. By writing everything down and keeping documentation, I know what I'm doing. And then at the end of my services, I also look at the set, take some time to inspect it, and then decide how I can improve the set next time, if at all, or maybe I'll keep the map exactly the same. Okay, so I'm gonna use wet lash fans for the entirety of the set. I can tell by looking at this inspiration photo that 100% wet lashes were used. Next up, I want to know how many spikes are the focal point for the set, and there are a few. So I did a count and there's about 12 spikes that I want to be quite prominent for the set. So we're going to do 12 spikes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to have to evenly space them. So I might actually add another one in here and another one over here. So we've got about 12. Now, when I work on Nia's eyes, if 12 doesn't work, I can totally change it to be like 10 or 14 or whatever works, because everyone's eyes are different width-wise. So that's just gonna be a starting point. And my shaping wise, I think for Nia, because we can manipulate the shape to look however we want, but still stick to the same general style. But for Nia, I was initially thinking a doll eye would be good, and I do like that, but I am gonna change my shaping. So it's still gonna look like a doll eye, but I am gonna use a squirrel eye mapping to create it, because if we look right here on her eye, her natural lash lift does descend down a little bit, as does her eye shape. So in order to give more of a doll eye shaped effect, I'm going to use a squirrel eye mapping to create that. So my longest lengths are gonna sit from where the eye starts to point down, or the eye shape starts to descend down, about here to about here. And then spike-wise, my spikes are gonna be placed on the top layer. So I'm gonna use, let's say 13 millimeter for my longest length in the middle section of the eye. So we're gonna go 13 where the highest point of the eye sits. And again, these are just for my spikes. And then 12, 11, 10, and 9 on the inner corner so that the spike still is prominent. And then in my squirrel section, so about here, I'm gonna go to, my spikes are gonna be 14 millimeter and then back down to 13 and 12. I think that's gonna look lovely on her. It's gonna match her eye shape really, really well. And the CC curl actually is gonna work well because she doesn't need a lot of lift, just a little. So my lengths are what's gonna give me lift for her, more so than changing curls across the eye, which I most often do. So it's gonna be fun for me to do this. And then to create wispiness, so my spikes are all gonna be placed on the top layer. So we're gonna call this the top layer. And then my middle and bottom layers, or basically the rest of the set, I call that the base. So base just meaning anything outside of the spikes. Those are gonna be a mix of different lengths. So to add a little extra wispiness, I think I'm gonna jump down by 2 millimeters for the base. So in my 13 millimeter section, for example, all the rest of the lashes on the top layer will be 2 millimeters shorter. So we're gonna go 11 in the middle to about here. And we're gonna go 12 in my 14 millimeter section, and then 11 and 10. Back down to 8 on that inner corner. So 10, 9, and 8. So that's gonna be my top layer base, but to give an extra textured effect, I'm gonna mix multiple lengths within the section. So in my 11 millimeter section, I'm also gonna have 10s and 9s. In my 10 millimeter section, I'm also gonna have 9s and 8s. So I'm skipping 2 lengths between the spikes and the base, but then I'm gonna add 2 more lengths that are shorter than the base shape for the rest of the set. That's gonna give me extra texture and it's gonna look so good. Outside of putting the spikes on the top layer, I'm literally not even thinking about layers. I'm just blending lengths all throughout. That's gonna give me extra wispiness. I'm gonna use my layers to my advantage. And inner and outer corner often only have one layer, so I'm only gonna use 2 length variations in there. You could totally use more, but I'm not thinking that that is necessary. Just by looking at her natural lashes, she doesn't have a crazy amount of layers in there. But her layers are pretty intense. I could lash her for a good 5 hours if I wanted to, because she has so many natural lashes. To inspect the layers, I lift the lid like this with my fingers. You could close your eyes too if you want. If the light was bright, I would get my clients to close their eyes. But looking at the middle section of her eye, she has a good 4 to 5 layers. And on the top layer, she does have quite a few rogue lashes. So I think I'm actually gonna avoid the rogue lashes on the top. Definitely I'm gonna do that. Avoid the rogue lashes that sit higher than the rest on the top layer. And I'm gonna make sure that my spikes sit on the most consistent layer that sits closest to the top. All right, let's bring this lash set to life.